Okay, good afternoon, and welcome to our opening general session for the high volume track. I'd like to call up to the podium the sponsor of today's presentation, Jeremy Miller, Senior Commercial Director, Smart Home Solutions for GE Appliances. Jeremy.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Good. All right. Welcome to Louisville. Hopefully everybody got in time for the Derby. But today we're going to be talking about, the conversation on how do you actually bring smart home to your customers and kind of what are the things that are running through their heads. I'm a pretty conversational person, so anybody can stop me. I got 10 minutes, but we'll get through this, and hopefully I'm going to just share some interesting insights with you. So Louisville's our home. Most of you probably know that, but we've been here for over 70 years. I work in AP5 there, and this is what we were working on back in the 50s. So this was the Partio cart. Has 240 volts of power going to that electric oven, and pretty sure they're standing next to a pool. So, smart homes come a long way. It's evolving. We're getting there. We're figuring it out. But, it is a journey. And so when you look back in the 50s, and you actually go back and you look at some of the marketing materials and the things that people were talking about in terms of what the future of the smart home was or what it will be, and the Jetsons and all that sort of stuff, what you'll find is it actually looks a lot like the things that we have today. It's really about continuing to drive more convenience, delivering on values that people care about, giving them products that meet their needs, and those things actually don't necessarily change over time. I mean, as home builders, this. There's a home, and then there's things that go into a home. The structure itself, its purpose, hasn't really necessarily changed throughout the years, but maybe some of the things you want from it have continued to kind of evolve along the way. And appliances and smart home, I think, are not much different. For those of you who know Mason Carrico, that was him when he was a kid. So, good-looking young man. But the evolution today that we're starting to see, and so this is just something, maybe to keep in mind, right? Because nobody can truly predict the future. But, I spent several years working in the artificial intelligence space. And the thing that was most amazing to me, at least the thing that I was completely surprised by, was how cheap it was for us to achieve some of the things that, once were science fiction. Everybody in here right now is interacting with artificial intelligence in some shape or form many times a day, and you don't even notice it. And a lot of that is just because of the fact that for people like us, software developers, manufacturers, whoever, the access to the resources to actually run the AI is now cheap, because that was always the problem. The problem was it was hard, it cost a lot to run an AI, but now with cloud and everything else, that's becoming much more approachable in terms of delivering it to the market. And so what I think you'll see is a world where we went from a closed system to a world where it's like this bespoke system that some of your customers maybe are starting to look at, right? I can go to Best Buy and build my own smart home with the brands that I like, and I can figure out what I need. But I think the next step in this evolution, though, is autonomous, intent-based systems that, they're not, I always say that voice, and you guys have the data, but voice is kind of a clunky interaction. It's not a great interface. I've worked with a bunch of people that work in voice, and they hate it because they know it's not living up to its ideal. So, but AI and automation, I think, are going to be really exciting. The other thing to mention when we think about smart home and the features and what people are doing with our appliances, I'm part of this team called Rocket, and what we do is we deploy software updates to the appliances every 3 weeks. And I have a user group. And I swear to God, I was watching them in the Facebook group, chatting with each other about how they can turn on demo mode for the oven so they could keep the screen on so it would stay bright so they could show off to their friends, because it would turn off after 10 minutes. And it's like, you don't know your customer. You just don't. None of us do. People don't know us. Brands can say they know us, but do they really know us? I don't think they do. So, what we're starting to find out is the things that excite people about smart home aren't necessarily the big complicated concepts. While AI and automation and those sorts of things are really powerful, being able to put weather on the wall of an LCD, believe it or not, is just like an unbelievable feature to our owners because it's always there. It's at eye level. You can see it no matter where you are in the house with an open concept. And if you just need to run out the door and look at this thing, it's right there. And people are just bonkers about it. It was just a tiny little update to the appliance that just made it that much more useful. So those are the things that we're starting to discover in terms of what our customers are looking for. And just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about partners that you work with besides GE and what they're delivering, because it's not always like this, big wow. I mean, I think smart blinds was one of the most successful things a lot of single-family builders did. Simple, useful, powerful, right? People get it. But the outcomes overall, again, they line up to what appliances always, had, homes always had. But, autonomy is like in some ways like one of the bigger ones, right? It needs to be a system that understands what I need. It can do it for me when I want it to. Think about an S thermostat. Think about Ecobee. You can actually extend that thought to what if a cooking product could know what you wanted to do when you wanted to do it, so you didn't have to take that proactive action of even saying, hey, Alexa, turn on the oven. So those sorts of things I think will start to weave themselves into more and more IoT devices. Interoperable, we all know this, like people want the stuff to work together. We have 13, 14, 15 connected IoT devices in our home on average. People want those things to collaborate. Proactive service outcomes. So, having spent some time in the oil and gas industry, we used to always joke there's no such thing as preventative maintenance or proactive maintenance because by the time something bad has already happened, even if it's warning you. But still, there are things that we know about our products, like dishwashers, for example, where we can detect poor performance because we can see the data in terms of the temperature of the water, if it's getting up to temp, and some of the things that are happening. And what we found is we can discover things like the installer accidentally dislodged the heating coil. Appliance still works. Customer still thinks it's a working appliance. They just may think the quality is bad. But now we can say, like, oh no, just clip that back in and you're right as rain. Upgradable, we talked about that. I think as more and more devices, cars, everything that we interact with can now be updated. We were one of the first to market with deploying updates to our washers with our P&G integration. Our oven, I've deployed 26 software updates over the past year, maybe year and change. And the industry's moving that way. It's just something that we think consumers will gravitate towards, and it just really delights them. It's exciting. Security is obviously also very top of mind. Privacy and cybersecurity. They're one and the same, but they're also very different. You have to pay attention to both. You can't just say you do one. The consumer thinks about security in that context of you're protecting me and my data, but you're also making sure this thing here is safe and nobody's going to interfere with it. I talked a little bit about the Rocket program. So this is us deploying software updates every few weeks. And it's only things that surprise and delight our owners. So weather, we integrate with Unsplash, so it rotates background images. And, just doing little things like that just make people just go like, oh, wow, that's interesting. It's not a big change, but this makes my product better. And then the next one is the big littles, right? Sensors, and more sensors. Sensors are getting cheaper too. And the good news is, since AI can run on lower and lower compute, I've seen people run AI on light switches, like without connecting to the internet. Sensors will become extremely powerful, an extremely big part of this ecosystem. And then they will also help retrofit. They'll help, you upgrade homes without necessarily a lot of cost to the buyer. So sensor technology, I'm super pumped about. And you can think about appliances as sensors. Like the whole home water filter, yes, it filters the water, but it has a flow meter on it. And it can detect if there's a leak in that house coming from a toilet or if it's something more severe. So just think about that in terms of the appliances, the products that you're putting in. Can they also be sensors? And a lot of them can now, which is great. And so with the key questions, I always, to think about with your customers, and this is through our own research, going in homes, figure out what is their motivation. They're starting to segment themselves. You might have some that are just, I care about the environment, and so I want home energy management because I care about the environment. I don't care if I save money. And like the saving money equation, I don't think is going to motivate people on the green thing. I think now it's, I don't care if it costs more, I want to do good. But there might be some people who are just like, I just want the most sophisticated home on the market, give me a bespoke solution, and I'll pay top dollar for somebody to come in and install this. Are there certain priorities in the home? We've talked to people who are just like, I used to be all in on smart home, now I only do smart irrigation. Or, they'll just do stuff for the kitchen. And so think about that too with your customers and have the ability to maybe have different offers for them that can meet those needs, right? Work with partners that can package things up for you so you can offer those things. And then, there's going to be, right now, if you want a cloud-based smart home, it's a cheaper solution, right? But there obviously are local solutions, like you can run Control4 with Josh AI, totally locally, get some really great value. But if somebody's like, I don't really need the local factor, I'm okay with the lower cost solution that connects to the cloud, something else to think about, right? But over time, I also think that a lot of stuff will be able to run locally, and that's the future. And then just like a last plug on us, we have over 30 million appliances in our install base now. All those data points there, I like to call them out, not necessarily just so I could say like, oh, look at all the big data points. But because of all that data, we are becoming a much smarter company. That data is going to help us understand how to build more models that can predict when we need to reach out to a customer and take care of them so they're not calling you after you've handed the keys over and they're running into an issue with their dishwasher. We want to get ahead of anything and make sure that we're serving that customer correctly and proactively. And all of that data now, way beyond statistical significance, can help us do that. And we're already starting to deploy this technology. So quality will be driven a lot by that data, which is really cool. We have an open ecosystem. I want to speed this up. You're familiar with, we run on Android and iOS, and then we are the largest appliance manufacturer and only one that has a UL Gold certification for cybersecurity and privacy. So we have a third party verify our standards to ensure that we comply to CCPA and the same security standards that the financial services industry follows for their infrastructure. So we keep it pretty tight and security first mindset. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, and thank you, GE Appliances, for sponsoring the session. Our topic is devising, marketing, and selling tech standards and upgrades. Now, before we dig in on that, since this is the first session, I just want to give you a little bit of a preview of what's ahead in terms of all of the general sessions and some of the guiding themes. So we've got 5 general sessions teed up for you. And I think we'll be traveling across what I call this tech home process continuum or collaboration process continuum. We laid this out a couple years ago in a guide publication. And I like to think that, after 35 years of banging our heads against this, most builders get that technology is important, right? That it's one of the things that's near the top of the wish list for buyers, and are trying to do something good about it. I think where we're at now is not the awareness that you should do something, but how do we get it right? And I think in many cases that's about how do we get process right. So we will be traveling on this continuum and digging in on what some folks are doing or what they might do. And in fact, this panel has a lot of work in progress stuff that we're going to share with you. along the way. So I think that's important to understand. Now, who knows who this guy is? I don't think anybody knows who this guy is. The only reason I know who this is because I was sitting in the bleachers in Wrigley Field when the Bears played in the 60s. This is Bobby Joe Green. Bobby Joe Green played 14 seasons in the NFL, and he did over 40,000 yards in punting. And that was about the story of Bears offense in the after Gale Sayers got injured for about 10 years. This was our offense. It was Bobby Joe Green. Now, who knows who this guy is? That is Jerry Rice, and he is the career leader in touchdowns of any sort, rushing or catching. He's 30-some touchdowns ahead of Emmitt Smith. So, I've been talking to a lot of folks as I prepared these sessions, and honestly, I'm hearing a lot about punting, right? There's a lot of punting going on because it's easy to do right now. You could sell a home by putting 4 walls and a door up, right? But this is going to be a program that's going to encourage you not to punt, but to throw that deep post pattern over the middle and try to score touchdowns with tech, okay? Now, who is this guy? That is John F. Kennedy, September 12, 1962 at Rice University as we were kicking off the Apollo space program. And this is what Kennedy said. This is kind of a famous part of the speech. He said, "We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, accomplishments and aspirations, not because they are easy, but because they are hard, because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are not unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win." So the stuff that we're going to be talking about the next 2 days is hard. It's actually hard. But I think doing hard things is not the most fashionable thing right now in our society or in the workplace, but it's got its benefits, right? It's got its business benefits, and it also has its benefits to your soul because it is what organizes and measures the best of our energies and skills. And then you get from that speech in 1962 to this scene in Apollo 13 when they finally landed on the moon, and Tom Hanks Lovell is in his backyard looking up at the moon, and he says, "From now on, we live in a world where man has walked on the moon, and it's not a miracle. We just decided to go." So these hard things we're talking about, they're not miracles. You have to embrace the challenge, but you just decide to do it. So that's what, at an emotional level, I guess, I'm hoping you can come away from this is to, understand you can score touchdowns with tech, that it is hard, but it's worth doing the hard thing because you can get someplace like this. So I hope my metaphors were apt. And with that, let's turn to this session. And I've circled the area on the process continuum that we're tackling, which is the merchandise plan and the marketing. And one of the most critical things about the merchandise plan is deciding what your standard is and what your major options and upgrades are going to be. And then the next step of that, which is how does that feed into marketing so you get lift from your standard, and how do you provide the appropriate marketing supports so you can actually sell through those major options and upgrades. So that's what we're going to tackle today. I've got a great panel. Just to the right of me here is Chris Ironman Hartley. He runs Ironmans, like multiple Ironmans a year. It's amazing. And Chris was a panelist on our Housing Transformation Summit on digital transformation in the marketing arena. He's out of DFW, and he's their VP of Sales for KHOV down there. Tom Nelson, alphabetically, is next. He's the president of NDG Communications, which is a marketing agency which has been doing work for builders for 30-some years, I believe, thereabouts.
Not that old, 20-some.
20-some. I'm the 30-some guy. You're the 20-some guy. And then Sam Schulte, who is a director of purchasing at the regional level for MI Homes. And then we will have Brett Jacob of Nortec joining us for a little cameo as part of the flow. We're gonna start off. We're gonna hear from KHOV and then MI on the standards, the upgrades, and from KHOV more about the marketing lift piece, and from Sam and Brett more about the digital marketing supports for the option sales, and then we'll talk about the kitchen too. So with that, I'm going to turn the clicker over to you, Chris.
Sounds good. I do compete in Ironmans, but I'm actually terrified of water and open water, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Makes you swim faster.
Well, I'm actually a really slow swimmer, so I just like to torture myself, is I think what that's all about. So let me give you a little bit of background here with KHOV Nanian. For the past 2 years, KHOV has been working extremely hard behind the scenes to create what most of us would call packages, although that's a very bad word in our industry or for our company, but we call them looks curated interior designs. And what we're doing here is we're focusing very carefully on curated packages that consumers can incorporate into their homes, such as farmhouse, loft, classic, and what we call elements, which is our standard or our included. And we do this on what we call 4 different spec levels. We have 1, 2, and 3, and then we have what would be compared to an LGI or a D.R. Horton Express. Now, what's interesting is that when John had approached me about speaking in regards to this topic, is I'm a huge fan of all things technology. And using U-Tour, unassisted entry, text messaging for follow-up, whatever it is that gives my sales team a lift to sell homes, I'm all about and I'm all for. Well, when I was approached with our curated looks palettes or our designs, one thing that seemed to fall secondary to the beautiful looks of the interiors of the home was the technology actually in the home. And so John approached me, he's like, hey, I really want you to speak on this. We've spoken before, we had a great time. Can you talk about all the great things that you're doing? And I said, well, we're just getting ready to launch this. And we launched this, just so you all know, 3 weeks ago. We built our very first model home. We accomplished a 4,000 square foot model in DFW in 42 days from start to finish, which is unheard of in our market. And I'm starting to do research on the technology. And I said, well, where is the technology? I said, what are we doing in these homes? And so they give me a list of included features, and I quickly see that the included feature level is the same for a $400,000 house, which is a starter home now for us in DFW, up to a $1.1 million neighborhood, which is where we built this 4,000 square foot community, or this model home. And I said, well, how in the world can you have the same included features for a $1.1 million model home that you have for a $400,000 model home? And my purchasing director looked at me and he said, I don't know, this is what they passed down to me. He said, well, try to sell it and we'll figure it out later. Well, of course, as any sales leader is going to tell you, you sit in front of a team and you sit in front of somebody trying to sell a $1.1 million home, their expectation level is a little bit different than somebody trying to sell a $400,000 home. So I'm going to take you through what we are doing standard, what we've learned over the last 3 weeks, and then what we have coming up, because we very quickly recognize that what we are offering at 1.1 million, even though the community starts in the 700s, is nowhere near what the consumer is expecting.
So Bobby Joe Green got sent to the bench.
Very much so, very much so. So to give you guys some idea, one of the things that we are doing as an included package is we're spending most of our time focusing on the structured wiring itself. So you're going to have a 30-inch panel in the master closet. You're going to have your RG6 and your Cat6 wiring basically everywhere inside the home. And as odd as it is to say, that is our tech standard. At that particular price point. Now, we do a few minimal things, in my opinion, such as a USB outlet inside the kitchen. We have multiple of those. And we do a Wi-Fi thermostat and a Wi-Fi garage door opener. So what's interesting to me is that is very much a minimal. That's almost like punting that we talked about earlier. We have actually stepped back from what we were doing. We were handling this on the local level or the division level, which we were doing significantly more included even at the lowest price points of our neighborhoods. So for us as an upgrade, and keep in mind our idea is simple, honest, and beautiful. That's the tagline, simple, honest, beautiful. We do want it to be simple, and we do want it to be understood very easily by our consumers, But there is a thing as scaling back too much from what you can expect to actually get inside of a home, especially when you start to hear Sam talk and he's got all these really great marketing pieces and all these great things that they're doing. And I run back to my director of purchasing and I said, look what MI's doing. Why can't we do the same thing? And he's like, do you want another price increase? And I'm like, I get one every week anyway. What difference does it make? So what we do is we have our standards, right? Which again, they're very minimal. The one great thing that we do is we will put in the pre-wire for a flat screen in your family room, your game room, and your master. That's one cool thing that we used to charge for that's now included. But beyond a Wi-Fi thermostat and a Wi-Fi garage door opener, everything else is fairly what it used to be. Now, again, we only offer 2 upgrades with our packages, and this is all the way up to $1 million plus in DFW. One of which is the deadbolt, the Wi-Fi deadbolt, the quick set deadbolt that we're going to have there, and then a Ring doorbell. So we charge one price for this, it's $800. Now, most people would think at $400,000 that you would be getting those, and we used to do those. But what we're finding is that our sales team is more or less just saying at a very inexpensive cost, this is what you'll have here, and people are accepting it literally every single time. We then have a second upgrade, which basically gives you the smart switches. Now, you look at this and you say, okay, so for 2 upgrades, so $1,600 for us, $1,640, you're getting the USB outlets, you're getting the Wi-Fi thermostats, you're getting the Wi-Fi garage door, you're also getting your smart switches, you're getting your Ring doorbell, and you're getting your deadbolt. Now, at $1.1 million, you would just assume that would all be as part of the package included inside of the home. Maybe, even at 400, 500, 600, depends on your market, that would be something that you would accept. Now, what KHOV's trying to do is they're trying to fit very minimal packages or features across the entire country, roughly 7,000 homes. So it's very difficult to appease every market. What may be okay in DFW may be very different what's okay in Cincinnati, and so on and so forth. We do give ancillary options and upgrades to people, such as rain sensor or Wi-Fi censored irrigation. That's an additional option that they could do, even a car charger. Now, what we are finding is that it is very difficult for us to even sell a home, an inventory home, if it does not have that car charger in the garage. Now, granted, this first attempt for us is 700 to 1.1 million. We're having a lot of electric vehicles. But when we're looking at this, one thing that we have put back onto the corporate office is how can we incorporate what people are already expecting? And so the common response has been, let's go ahead and do a sample size. Let's see how many options are actually sold, which is very common for us high volume builders. If it's chosen 80% of the time or more, we'll go ahead and include it into the home, and obviously we'll increase your base price. Increasing the base price, as Sam and I were talking about, is so very common for us recently. But as the market starts to tighten, the interest rates start to go up, the average house payment is now 30% higher today than what it was 60 days ago. Passing on price increases is going to start to become a little bit more difficult than what it was. But buyers are also not going to just accept whatever we give them. At a certain price point, they're going to expect certain things, especially if I'm sitting next door at the exact same price as what Sam's sitting next to, and he's giving all of these things to us. Now, granted, you don't want to ever go, the dare to compare sheet where we offer the exact same thing, but there are certain things that buyers are expecting inside of our homes, and we're starting to see that although our buyers from 700 to 1.1 million would just go ahead and pay for it to be included, all of this stuff that's up on this screen has been in every single home that we've sold. And it's been one of those comments that, I would have thought that should have been included at this price point.
Yeah. So you've got an evolving process there. You have the ability to update what you're doing with your standard with some sort of decent interval. It's not going to be a 2-year process. It's going to be a matter of months, or what?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate that we do have a portal that we can put any suggestions in at KHOV for enhancements to the curated packages that we have. So if it's something where we say, hey, at this particular price point, this should be included, you actually go in, you submit it, and then you have votes, and it gets voted up, and then it gets brought up to the attention a little bit sooner than later. Yep. It seemed to have been a pretty good process because we've been able to enhance these interior design palettes a lot quicker than I would have imagined for a large home builder.
So how are you guys playing this in your marketing? You have some other slides on that, right?
Yeah, we do. So one of the things, so this is our new looks package here, our looks palettes. So you can see that picture off to the far right there. Everything that you see inside of here is part of that look. So this is our farmhouse look. It does have the stained beams up in the ceiling. It does have the shiplap. It has the shiplap fireplace. They are truly gorgeous. We are giving people everything that they could imagine and more, and we're getting some phenomenal response and feedback on here. We are doing offers programs on our homes, highest and best offers, and we've been getting $100,000 to $200,000 more than what we had asked for on these homes, which is phenomenal. But we are incorporating technology into how we are actually selling and pushing these options. So when a consumer walks through the door, obviously the first thing that they're going to see with us is what we call our SCP. It's a sales center platform. It is a touchscreen monitor that's going to give you video. It does have audio, and it's going to take you through the different interior palettes that we have. In addition to that, there is a tab for technology where you can click on that and you can learn about the structured wiring program. You can learn about the Ring doorbell. You can learn about the Wi-Fi garage door opener, the electric car charger. It does give you a little background information on all of those. Now, inside of our actual, what we call our design studio, because they are done at the time of contract with us now, and they are done, believe it or not, up to 1.1 million without any issues inside of a tandem third car garage. Now I'm going to show you another picture here. Actually, let me just jump to it so you can see, and then I'll back up. To that far left is our classic palette. We build very beautiful vignettes inside of the garage that give you the classic, the farmhouse, the elements, and then the loft look. So inside of that room that we had, that you do also have digital touchscreens as well, because if you do get a high volume of consumers, one thing you don't want to do is have them waiting. We do average 20 units of traffic in this particular location a weekend, and these touchscreens are being used nonstop. And then, of course, the third touchscreen, and then it also is a video monitor as well, is above the fireplace, and it's going to once again take you through all of the components that we talked about. So there are 3 different points within the home that you can learn about the technology that we're using. With this, though, I will have to say, when I saw the marketing pieces that MI had, I did go to our marketing department and I said, where the hell are ours? And they said, well, they're coming. This is fairly new. You got to give us a break. And I said, well, you know, we're trying to sell $1.1 million homes here, and I don't even have a flyer to give somebody on the technology. And they said, well, you just got to wait. It's all coming. But they do a great job of having it digitally on there where they can explain it a little bit too. The sales team is very much responsible. And here's what I'll tell you. As being a VP of sales now for a long, long time, and I've been doing this almost 2 decades, salespeople for the most part struggle to explain technology because not all of them understand it themselves, which is why builders so oftentimes do packages with their technology, and they give it as a flyer so they can hand it off, because it is difficult to explain. I do truly believe that the reason we went in this is your included package and you have 1 or 2 different option levels is because we're trying to make it as simple as we can for the consumer and as simple as we can for the salespeople. Far too often, though, we get blindsided by the pretty stuff that you can see and touch, and we're not paying attention to the stuff behind the walls that people are going to need later when they move in to the home.
Why do you think they don't understand how to sell it? I mean, is that a fault of the vendor community not really providing you with the assets or the training on that?
You know, before this, because it's one of the questions you had asked when we talked about this before, what did we do before? We did send people to a technology expert, so to speak, or a low voltage company to actually pick the options, and we found that they were spending considerable amount of money. They were doing a great job selling it. Well, it's because they had an expert actually selling and pushing the options and the upgrades to that. When we ask and we rely upon the sales team to do so, we actually found those options and upgrades actually slipping. The packages were not selling as much because the sales team would simply say, well, this is one of the packages that we have, you can read up on it here, and it's just not something that they're really focused on. Yeah. Unfortunately, and being somebody that leads a sales team and a rather large sales team, because we sell 800 homes a year, the training component of it is more focused on selling the interior packages or overcoming common objections.
Gotcha.
But let's also be real, the last 2 years we've been hanging out just signing contracts without putting minimal effort into it.
Yeah.
It is going to take a lot of work, and as we were talking about before, I truly believe I have a great sales team. I'm about to see if I have a great sales team.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. Let's keep moving. Let's move it over to Sam. Sam, can you walk us through the current offer here?
I can, but before that, Chris, thanks for your comments. John, thanks for including me in this opportunity, and thanks for allowing me to speak to everyone here today. I think there's a couple things that stood out to me in the earlier comments. One is, going to the moon, that's really difficult, and it's probably impossible if you don't have the right team. I'd like to start out, I'm new to MI Homes, been with them 2.5 years, so a lot of the successes that I'm hoping to share, best practices, are a part of the team that came before me as well as the team that we have. I think that's the first thing to highlight as we jump into this, is that the way that we've approached this is only possible because we have a really strong integrator. And we have a really, really great provider in the Elan. Brett Jacobs is going to join me here in a little bit to share what we're working on. But I think that's where it starts, is if you have the right team and the dedication from everybody working together, you can deliver what is complicated, and there's lots of different components, and do it in an intuitive way for the home buyer. And I think that's key to making a home buyer feel comfortable. And I think, as Chris shared, it is difficult to talk about technology without getting too far in the weeds and bogging down the conversation for a customer. So I think it's, we experience technology, and when we experience it, that's when we get excited. So part of what I think our challenge is, as you'll see, is how do we take what's a pamphlet, a brochure, and turn it into an experience for customers to get excited about it. So real quick, very similar to Chris, our base offering, it includes a smart door lock, a smart light switch, and a smart thermostat, and that's all combined with an Elan controller. And I think that's really another part of the challenge with technology, is that it's always changing. It's always evolving, which is what gets us to the next level. But it's difficult when you're doing high volume to figure out how to build something that's going to work for the future and not have to go back in and gut the whole thing and overhaul it with the next evolution of it. So I think the Elan controller has really helped us with our success, because as capabilities have come online over the years, we've been able to update that software package, and customers have been able to scale their, the performance of their system along with it. So our base...
These offers
Yes.
from Elan have been pretty stable for a couple of years now, which is a really good thing, right? Because it gives you time to absorb it, it gives them learnings to share with you, and they've got a platform that allows them to bring innovations in, but it also has a lot of stability to it, and I think you guys have leveraged that.
That's right. Yeah, our customers, we feel really comfortable telling our customers this is a platform you can grow with, as you live in your home. And we've also structured this to be scalable for each customer, depending upon their lifestyle and how they want to interact with their home. And you can see, on the slides here, we have packages that revolve around like entertainment, so TV, speakers, we have surveillance, we have some security, so kind of the standard packages.
They revolve around those products, but if you look at the way that they're framed in this brochure, and I'm sure this works as like a talking point for your team, it's very consumer-centric. It's not just like, hey, here's a list of products, and I'm sure you've heard of these, no, it's talking about benefits that are delivered by those packages, and it's kind of the right amount of information too. And there are going to be people who want to dig in really deep and understand, and they're the enthusiasts, right?
I think that's where the integrator comes in.
Yeah.
Having a good integrator that can have that conversation with our customers, because the gals that are running our design showroom and walking through all the interior selections of a home, they just don't have capacity to become technical experts in all of the parts and pieces of what makes a good tech offering for a customer. So
I just want you to understand that most of the tech experts you're talking about started off selling stereos in stereo stores. So they were not data scientists, okay? Just understand that.
Yeah.
I have great respect for all the expertise out there. I'm sorry, Brett, if I insulted, but it's not rocket science once you get into it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But I do think that part of MI's success is we've allowed the customer to go off-site with our integrator and have a sit-down, consultative conversation. What do you need? And then if the customer wants to get into the nitty-gritty, they can.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of our success is
Yeah.
not trying to be the expert where you're not.
Yeah.
Right? MI is, we're going to build a high quality home and deliver exceptional value to our customers. And we're going to let Walt's team at Fusion Technologies in Cincinnati deliver their value.
Yeah.
And it's also part of, so MI Homes is a corporate company with 16 different divisions, and each division as it relates to technology gets to go put their own offering together. So the MI Homes of Cincinnati offering looks different than the Dallas MI Homes offering. So
let's pull Brett up here and talk about what you guys are doing on the Envision platform, because I think that's a big next step is the digital support for the option selling, and we need to pass that on.
Yeah, Brett, thanks.
Yeah, this is by the way, thank you to MI Homes for their support, and we're excited about the 5-year relationship we have with you now at this point. But what you're seeing is a rough sketch of what we're in the process of onboarding with Envision, and the team at BDX has a lot of work behind the scenes working with the integrator. Because the pricing ultimately comes at the local level, right? And also my marketing team, Liz, she's out there. She's done a lot of the heavy lifting on this, and just getting everybody to work together to create this vision. But you can see this is a mock of the MI Homes Envision website. On the lower right-hand corner, you would see the Smart Home button, and you click onto there.
You get extra points for calling it Smart Home instead of low voltage.
There we go.
If anyone's calling anything low voltage on their consumer-facing catalogs, please stop now. Nobody knows what low voltage is. It doesn't sound good. I'd rather have high voltage, wouldn't you? I mean, sorry, go ahead.
So you see the 5 categories, general categories below, and this is kind of walking you through what a consumer would see on the website. Then they'll click into that, and then they'll get into the actual lifestyle-enhancing technology options. We didn't call them packages there. and this is where you kind of, you get into the safe and secure, peace of mind and surveillance, 3 different elements, different types of what you'd call a security type of package. And then when you go into there, you can select what you would like, and then it's going to bring up this ultimate order page. Or if you're a prospective customer, it'll go to a wish list. If you're actually if you're on Envision and you're in the process of picking out your options, then it'll go to your list, and you'll get priced out. And the idea on this is that this will kick over to our integrator. They'll know when it's been added to the wish list as well as added to the home. We'll also know, obviously the MI Homes team will know this as well. And we can get some neat, cool data coming out of this. Ultimately, why did somebody look at outdoor entertainment but not pick it? Those types of things, we can start looking into it. So, more examples just of sliding through. Here's some entertainment packages. And each of these packages, what we're ultimately looking at is we're creating a video for every one of these, because once you get into the actual looking at the packages, we want to have a 30 to 45 second video that would pop up that would talk about, so if it's music everywhere, we want to show that little lifestyle video that gets people excited about that makes them want to click on that and add it to their shopping cart.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because a lot of the design center platforms were developed with the typical finishes in mind, where it was very visual stuff. You want to show a bunch of colors and textures, et cetera, not experiential. And there's a lot of experiential benefits on the technology side of things. So we need video and virtualization within these platforms to really get people interested.
We need those tools, because the challenge is to do what we've done so well over the years in the physical world with model homes, design centers, and printed brochures. And now how do we take that same excitement and that that story and put it in this virtual world and do just a better job of presenting it.
Will we have downstream benefits like an automated bill of materials and on the purchasing side of things out of this ultimately, do you think?
I think in its first iteration, we'll still leave that to Walt's team, Fusion Technologies, the integrator, to provide that pricing to the customer.
Yeah.
But what I see the real benefit of this in the short run is that it's the same for all of our selections, and same reason I think, Chris, your team is trying to put this into a virtual setting, is that it allows a customer to take time on their own, educate themselves, and dream about their home. I mean, I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is allow customers to kind of think and get an idea of what they could have, because they may not already have had this experience with technology in their home.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a barrier gap. I've gotten by just fine without it. Why do I need it? Well, start to dream about it, and maybe you'd want it.
Enable a buying experience instead of a selling experience, maybe another way to put it, because they actually want it because they know about it. Tom.
Yes.
Time is flying. Tempus fugit. You've served some builders who are very tech forward. Brookfield comes to mind most of all, and then you've got your experience on with your other hat on U-Tour with the experiential marketing of technology. So tell us what you know.
Well, I think what we've been hearing a lot of is really that bridging of the digital and the physical, right? You know, if you, at first blush, you say, well, you know, we've been doing the physical with a sales center environment kind of the same way, right, for like the last 10 years or so. A lot of focus has been on digital, especially because of COVID, and rightfully so, not implying that it shouldn't. But what we're basically saying here is that we need those two worlds to be able to collide and to create that experiential experience here, because people definitely, absolutely need to experience it, need to see it, need to feel it. They fall in love with it online, but it's really that experience that they can have, which will make them realize how it's relevant to them. They can visualize themselves doing that. And, you know, they just don't know sometimes until they experience that they even want it, right? The Henry Ford quote is that if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? But we've got to give them the ability, and the technology is there to do it. We just need to, you know, basically invest in it. Here we go. And the reason being that why the experiential is so important is, like, we've all been talking about online and getting your virtual assets online, and I completely agree with that. I'm not downplaying that at all. You know, it's where everybody starts, and it's where they're going to do their research. But Zillow came out with this report that basically said 79% of people really need to see it to really see how the home's going to look and feel in person. And I believe the same thing is with tech. I really want to see, like, I fell in love with it online, but I still want to go see for myself, you know, is it as good in person, right? So I still think that there's that physical aspect of that has to happen. You know, 93% of buyers actually did take a private tour. Now, right now, what you're hearing, all the buzz at events like this is buy online, right? COVID forced us into having that conversation, but a lot of the CEOs and CMOs that I've talked to, there was a Redfin report that came out in early 2021 where they said in 2020, 63% of all homes were bought sight unseen. And that got everybody excited, right? But the one little nugget was they didn't factor in that number was influenced, first of all, by COVID, because you had to. You couldn't go see it. And then secondly, investors. Okay? I mean, in fourth quarter of last year, investors were almost 20% of the market. So when you unpack that a little bit, online is still extremely important. And we absolutely should be going towards a buy online feature, but it's not the only way. I mean, and in all transparency, really what this is motivating is that we, you know, want to basically not rely as much on our sales teams, right? Chris, right? That's, you know, that's what we're hoping for with buy online. But that being said, is that I don't believe the transaction, because of the data that I showed you before, is ever really going to be, I mean, there is a percentage of buyer, don't get me wrong, that will go from cradle to grave. Look at Carvana. They will absolutely do that online, but there's still a majority of the buyer that actually wants to see it. So what you have to do is, what we really believe is you've got to create options. And those options being what we've got here on screen is say, okay, great, for that person that is comfortable going virtual, let me do that. But then for the person that wants to be guided by a salesperson and have that one-to-one, give them that option. Or for the person, and this is what we're seeing a lot of growth in, is that in-between where before I talk to the human, before I talk to the person, before I go through a sales process, I just want to go see it for myself. And if they're going to go see it for themselves, what we've got to do as an industry is make sure that all that technology, the stuff that's behind the walls, the things that they're going to experience, actually come to life so that they don't get overlooked, right? And so that's why some builders have done some really great stuff to do that, because all of this, quite frankly, is being driven by self-service. That is also, a lot of what's fueling buy online as well, is that consumer demand for self-service. This is a package we created for Brookfield Residential called their Empower platform, which consolidates My Time Home Tours, which is the first iteration of UTour that's branded for them. But all of these different components that they basically have we called it Empower not by accident. It was because that's what's driving self-service. People want to be in control of this process. They want the information. They want to make the decisions, and because it makes them feel empowered that they're the ones in charge of the most important purchase of their life. But again, what we have to do is make sure that we have the materials, like the great content that MI has been showing you, but also to some of the points that have been made, and what Chris is doing in his models is making sure that people are feeling it and experiencing it when they enter that home as well.
Keep it going.
All right. They asked, hey, do you have any examples of how do we bridge the online and physical world? So I've got 2 quick videos to show you. They're both a minute, and hopefully the tech works.
Unlock the future of home buying with Venture, a revolutionary digital platform from America's most trusted home builder. Through next-level technology with a human touch, you can get real-person guidance when you need it, and independence when you don't. First, shop for your dream home from the comfort of your couch. Next, book a self-guided tour and explore the model on your schedule. Once you find a home you love, reserve your home site, floor plan, and elevation online. Have questions? Our friendly, professional sales team is here to help. Venture's digital touchpoints are your key to a simplified home buying experience that puts you in control. Discover the space to find your place with Venture.
The main point here is that while there was a process that they spelled out about going online and then self-guiding, and then if you wanted to have the human connection and the human guidance, you could. The point to make is create that experience so it's there, but it doesn't bypass the others. If someone still just walks in the door on a Tuesday and wants to talk to somebody, you can have that scenario there. It's about creating the different experience that gives people the option. They want to go as far through the process as they're comfortable with in that self-service experience. But again, it's not right for everybody, so we don't have to assume, and I think the biggest mistake where we really get down the path of this whole buy online is that people are saying, well, I don't need to put those experiential demonstrations in my model anymore because everyone's going to be online. And that's true to a certain extent, but the data's still saying I still want to come see it before I move on. I got one more quick 1-minute video. It's a snippet of another video to just kind of show how the experiential can basically work with some of the devices in the home.
Oh, this is pretty. Welcome to Southern Pines, Taylor Morrison's first venture community. You're viewing the Cypress model. Enjoy your tour and feel free to ask me questions along the way. Just say, Alexa, ask the new home assistant, followed by your question.
Through one-of-a-kind technology with a human touch, you can get real person guidance when you need it and independence when you don't. And with digital touch points throughout the model, simply ask Alexa a question to learn more.
Oh, just ask Alexa. Alexa, ask the new home assistant what's included in the kitchen.
All homes in Southern Pines include white quartz countertops, electric stainless steel GE appliances including refrigerator, stove, dishwasher and microwave, plus beautiful cabinetry in designer colors. Check out our canvas collections in the Discovery Den for more details.
So now that's using voice, but you can also, we use text chatbots to do the same experience. And now, as you saw with some of the amazing devices you guys were showing, the devices have some of that technology built in that we can do as well, where motion sensors can trigger to know that someone came into the room and deploy an experience. It's just being thoughtful about it and being willing to put the devices in and make it connected. Because really, that's what you want to really do is let people experience it as they're going through that, but do it in a way where it doesn't necessarily require the guided help of a professional there, but it should be there. And then the last point to basically make, John had asked me in preparing for this, he was like, well, what kind of lift do you see with selling tech? And I was like, I can't really answer that question because it's expected. This next stat's even better, that basically says, it's extremely important, even more so than resales, because they tell us that's why they bought new home to begin with. So I think, when Chris, you were mentioning that there's a little bit of, the salespeople weren't doing as good of a job of pushing that forward. And I think it's because they're a little bit embarrassed that it's an option. Because that buyer's, like you said, expecting, especially at some of those price points, is expecting the tech. And that's really why they're even interested in new homes to begin with, because they expect to get all the latest tech. So I think it does put the salespeople in a bit of a challenging position when you have to say, okay, now you've got to go tell them that they have to pay for it extra, right? But they're like, well, it's a new home. Isn't all of this technology built in? This is what is one of the advantages. So to just the parting slide, the point to make, did anyone ever see this? This was the deconstructed model. It was about 10 years old. This was in Phoenix. Meritage Homes did this, and it was Disney World for home builders. Like every builder that I knew went to go experience this, and they took all the drywall off. They showed you behind the walls. They had all these demonstrations to show you how the insulation made things work and all the technology, and it was awesome, and the home building industry loved it. Consumers did not understand it. They were so confused. I was literally there in this model taking pictures, reveling how great it was, and I heard a home shopper walk in and ask the salesperson, "Where's the real model?" They just didn't understand it. And that's when selling technology, doing this approach, we all get so caught up into the details of how the tech works. It's like selling a car and popping up the hood, the first thing you do, and looking at the engine. Now, do you have that enthusiast buyer that will do that? Or do you have that really tech-savvy guy? Of course you do. That's a small segment. But most people really are like, no, I want to see how this thing drives, Will my phone hook up to it? Or, how comfortable are the seats? So my parting shot to you on what to do with this stuff is sell the benefits, not the product. Yeah. Sell the experience that it provides.
Yeah, okay. I think one of the cool things, Tom, you've done with the U-Tour stuff is embedding the technology experience in the tour, right? So the technology is helping sell instead of a salesperson maybe, but it's also triggering effects that are like, wow, that's cool that the lights went up and down. It's like, right. And people start asking for it without it actually being pitched to them, and I think that's...
Yeah, and I think it's a blend. I don't think it's an or situation. I think it's an and. If you take the technology and you can explain and give people the opportunity to experience it and then pair them up with a fantastic salesperson that understands it, it's a home run.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time. I was going to ask you guys all about, let's do just a quick, I'm going to run 3 minutes late for the people in the back of the room who are going to get mad. So what do you see coming as a standard? What one or two things in a couple of years do you think will be standard?
Yeah, so real quick, and just not because they were our sponsor, but every one of our homes that we've sold between 700 and 1.1 million have upgraded to the Cafe line, to the Smart Series for the appliances. Mm-hmm. I see at certain price points, as Tom said, it's embarrassing for salespeople to say it's an option because it really should be included. It's almost like saying a microwave would be an option today. Mm-hmm. It should just be included.
Sam, how about you?
I tend to agree with Chris. I think it is going to run the gamut through appliances in the home. I think that integration to a platform is key to that. Yeah. And I think Jeremy highlighted AI as maybe something in the future. Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to see how that all can be integrated together and automated.
I'm going to give you my 2 cents on the kitchen in a second, but okay. Let's hear from Tom.
I would say interoperability. We've heard that several different times. They want all this tech, but they don't want 17 apps to figure out how to do it, and they don't want these different experiences. Being able to control it from a centralized solution is what we hear every day that they basically want, and that's what I think really takes it to the next level. Give me this great experience, but make it easy for me to manage it.
Cool. So my 2 cents on the kitchen are that these appliances need to be combined with the AV and information technologies. Right. If we really want to create a different experience, there's the appliances that are doing the cooking, but there's people in there. And cooking is a social thing. It's social over distance. And we have not done a good job of showing how you can be, your own pasta granny broadcasting to somebody else, or how social kitchen can be facilitated with AV and information technology. We put all that stuff around the appliances, I think we'll get better lift for the appliances. That's my 2 cents for you, GE. But anyway, we got to go. Can you just push that green button?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so my takeaways, you kind of set me up on this. My takeaways and to-dos, don't punt. I'd like to see us set standards that are more than network infrastructure. You have a little bit of active benefits delivered, but I think that's expected, and there's so many things that 90% of people want, and the 10% that didn't know they wanted it want it once they have it. And then you seed, and I think Alon in your program does a great job of seeding the major options and upgrades. I think that's the way to go on that. We didn't dig in too much to the marketing thing, but if you're going to make that investment in the tech, let's get the message out. Work with your vendors and your integrators. It's got to be simple, can't be a bunch of acronyms, but let's create some lift because it is a desired feature. And then, having the right asset, tools, and processes in place to sell those options robustly, physical, digital, experiential, walking through the model. Oh, it's happening to me. Why? What is that? What is that? Why? Getting people to ask the question. I think those are my key takeaways and to-dos. And I want to thank everybody on the panel. I want to thank Brett for jumping in with his cameo. I especially want to thank GE Appliances for sponsoring this session and encourage you to go see them at booth 107. Thank you very much. Now,